Lori.
Hello.
Hey, Lori. Excellent. We've got you on as well. Fantastic. I love the backdrop to the giant Ron Paul poster. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
I tried to be, yeah. He's my boy.
Oh, for sure.
A lot in the last 15 minutes.
There's Lyle.
I'm here.
Excellent. Hey, Lyle.
Hello.
All right, awesome. So everything else looks good. We're just waiting for, I believe, Rocky, and then we can get rolling.
We're a lively bunch tonight.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, Tom, say something. Come on, you're the host. Go for it.
You're supposed to tell some jokes, I think. Where's
That's
your
right.
jokes, Tom?
Let's break the ice, man. It's just getting too serious around here.
Bring it out. That's right.
A black jacket hanging in the closet, please.
Okay, I'm going to work with Rocky here to get him on. Tom, go ahead and take over for now. And feel free to just go ahead and dive in. We'll get him plugged in as soon as we can.
You want me to start now?
You betcha.
All right. Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We would like to welcome you to Idaho's first Liberty Candidate online town hall. My name is Tom Munds, and I will be your host tonight. Due to time constraints and the need for significant Q&A at the end, we've decided to forego the formal introductions and get right to the questions. We will be asking each candidate a total of 3 questions each in 1 question rotations. Please be as brief and concise as possible to allow for as many questions to be answered at the end. Tonight we have Glenneda Zuiderveld, right? Is that how you say that? She's running out of District 25A House. We've got Josh Gibbons, District 11A House, Michael Snyder, District 1 for Congress, Tammy Nichols, District 11B House, Lori Shewmaker, District 13B House, Lyle Johnstone, District 25 Seat B House, and Rocky Ferrenberg, District 24 Seat B House. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we will begin. And the first question is for Lori Shewmaker. How would you compare your positions to that of your opponent's voting record?
Well, I would definitely say that I would not be as compliant or go along to get along. My client is lukewarm, I guess we should say. And so on the major issues that people care about, it seems like he's unreliable. He's a mid-C, and I'm going for 100% A on the Freedom Index.
Nice, beautiful. The next question is for Glenneda. Glenneda, why do you feel our education system is suffering, and how does money play a role in your estimation?
Well, I think education is not suffering so much from money. It seems like every time they want money, they increase the money on there. I think a lot of it is maybe the transparency and where the money is going, and to better use that money to put it back in the classrooms to the teachers. I've been going through the budget from the website, which is 504 pages long. And so much of it is going to administrative costs instead of going to the teachers. And I feel that that is like having a car and you're buying brand new seats and you're buying steering wheels and you're buying wheels for it, but you're not putting the money and you have a broken down engine. And so it's not going to go anywhere. Teachers are the engine of our education. We need to invest in that. We need to make sure that they're being having all their needs met, and we just need to start going through. And any business, when you start putting money into something, if it's not producing the results, you look why it's not producing the results and look for better ways to make that education better.
Thank you very much. The next question is for Michael Snyder. what makes you different from other candidates that are running for Congress?
Thank you, Tom. What makes me so different is I'm the only one of the major candidates that's talking about the things that Liberty people like you and me, really care about. I don't know if you guys have been paying that much attention to our race, but there's 4 campaigns that still have a legitimate shot at winning this thing. And we're one of the 4, and we're very, very closely bunched together. It's literally anyone's race with less than 80 days to go. And so it's so important we get people to understand that we're the only campaign that's proposing that we abolish the Federal Reserve and the federal income tax. We're the only campaign that's talking about Agenda 21 and the NDAA. We're the only campaign that's talking about CBD oil and legalizing medicinal marijuana. We're the only one of the major campaigns that was pushing for the release of the Nunez memo, and we're the only campaign that wants to that's talking about sending Hillary Clinton to prison. We're willing to talk about the hard issues while the other guys aren't. So if they aren't willing to address these issues now while they're still in Idaho, are they going to be talking about them and pushing for them and fighting for them, fighting for us, the things we believe in as Liberty people? Are they going to be fighting for us when they're 3,000 miles away in Washington? Of course, we all know the answer to that question.
Thank you very much. The next question is for Rocky Ferrenberg. Why are you running for an Idaho House representative seat?
Hey, Tom, I think we're having issues with Rocky's audio still. I'm trying to figure out with him behind the scenes here. I'm going to have him hop back on in a second, so let's come back to him if we can.
Okay. All right. Next question is for Josh. How can we help the common man and woman thrive?
You know, when I think of the common man and common woman, I think of mom and pop shops, I think of employees, I think of small businesses, and I think of entrepreneurs. And what we're finding as we survey a lot of these businesses is we're finding that they're over-regulated and over-licensed. The way that we can help these companies is we can make it to where we get rid of regulations that aren't necessary and burdensome to these small businesses. Same with the license for these entrepreneurs. What that allows us to do at that point is that allows us to free up their time, their resources, and their money to invest back into their companies and back into their employees and back into Idaho.
Thank you very much. Next question is for Tammy. Tammy, why are you running?
Oh, that is the question that I get all the time. Probably the question I get asked the most. And thank you for having me tonight. I appreciate it. I am running because Canyon County is in desperate need of a change in leadership. We have some issues going on here, and they range from overspending to ethics to not listening to the people that live in Canyon County. Our voices have been silenced, and our representatives, I don't feel, are really representing us in the best way they possibly could be. So I am running because I want to be that representative. I want to be the voice for the people, not be my own voice, not be doing this for my own interest, but to actually represent them and to take into consideration and to work with the people of Canyon County, because we have some great people here, and I just want to be able to work with them and have them help me make Canyon County the best it can be.
Good job. Awesome. Lyle, top-down government or bottom-up government?
I guess I see, Tom, that we were originally endowed with a Declaration of Independence and a constitutional republic form of government, which was intended for bottom up. The pen wags the head of the dog rather than the, top down government, which seems like in watching the legislative process the last 2 or 3 years, at least part-time, the upper end seems to be controlling the bottom end. And I just think the people are getting the short end of the stick on taxes and freedoms and liberty.
Thank you very much. Lori, what kind of legislation will you support or sponsor when you get in?
Well, I think it would be extremely fun and productive for the citizens of Idaho and Canyon County. I'm in Canyon just like Tammy. And I would think it would be fun to find a bunch of stuff to repeal and wind up freer after a session.
That's awesome. Thank you. Glenneda, what are your thoughts on tax reform in Idaho and what could be done to ease the burden on our citizenry?
Well, on the tax reform, words mean something, and reform doesn't really ever necessarily mean reduction. It could be morphed into something else. It could, move it from here to there. So reform, a lot of times, I don't really think is being transparent and upfront with people. I think it just morphs into something else. I think we need to have a reduction where we have lower state tax, lower income tax, lower corporate tax. It will greatly benefit the citizens because by lowering all those, then people will start spending more, working more, opening more businesses. And then the state won't even suffer. It'll actually benefit from lowering that because it'll bring in all the growth that Idaho's wanting to see. That'll bring in the growth by lowering those taxes and straight across the board. No benefits for this company over this mom and pop's company. It's just lower taxes, and that'll bring people in. That will encourage people to come to Idaho for that. And I think we need to allow businesses to run unhindered and to generate more for the state coffers by lowering those taxes and not so much reforming, but reducing them. And because of that, it'll attract more businesses, it'll bring more tax revenue. And, government just needs to get out of small, medium, and large businesses' way and just let them do their thing.
All right. So are we ready for Rocky yet?
I think so. Rocky, are you live?
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
We sure can.
All right, that only took an hour.
Are you ready for your first question? We're going to put you in the hot seat.
All right, let's go for it.
All right. So why are you running for an Idaho House representative seat?
Well, I'm running because we're continuing to get the same old anti-conservative and big government garbage that all these rhinos keep pumping out. We as people should have a choice, and that choice should be a voice that the public knows is fighting for liberty instead of whatever interest group or lobbyist has the highest bidder. So pretty much I'm running as a regular citizen. I'm a CDL truck driver. I'm just a regular guy, and I'm running because I care. I'm not running because I'm some kind of establishment politician.
Nice. Thank you very much. Michael Snyder, what do you make of the financial shaking that we've been seeing on Wall Street this month?
Yeah, Tom, it's very disturbing because, of course, right now we're in one of the greatest financial bubbles that we've ever seen in our history. In fact, when you look at price-earnings ratios, the only time they've ever been higher were in 1929 before that stock market crashed and before the dot-com bubble crashed. And then price-to-sales ratios have never been higher. And the only reason we ever got to this point, people don't realize it's the Federal Reserve and other global central banks that have pumped up this bubble. And on the way up, it can seem very nice, but then the crash is disaster. Can you guys still hear me? And so what we're facing is potential shaking because, Tom, always, stock valuations always return to their long-term average, and it's going to happen this time. So, and to this time, stocks would have to fall 40 to 50% just to get to the point where they make sense. But if that happened, it would cause financial institution after financial institution to fail because they're so highly leveraged on Wall Street. So people need to realize the core of our long-term economic and financial problems is the Federal Reserve and other central banks. That's why since 1913, we've had 18 distinct recessions and or depressions. The value of our dollar has fallen by more than 90%, and the size of our national debt has got more than 6,000 times larger. So we need to abolish the Federal Reserve, and we need to do it as soon as possible.
Thank you very much. Rocky, we'll get you again here. What have you been most satisfied with in your life? Rocky. Did we lose Rocky?
You're on mute, Rocky.
Yeah, just give him a second.
Okay.
Hello? Can you hear
Okay,
me?
you're all set. Yep, we can hear you.
There you are.
All
You ready for
right,
the next
all right. Well, I believe that the question had to do with me being satisfied, and I think that right now is probably the most satisfactory time in my life. The reason B is that I spent a number of years homeless and a drug addict, and today I'm currently sober, and I've graduated from college with multiple degrees. I currently have a great job. I have two wonderful daughters that have never had to see me intoxicated or under the influence whatsoever. I have a loving and supporting wife who supports me in everything I do, including running for office and the possibilities that it might open to our lives. And, overall, I just have a really good life today, and it's not a life that I thought I could ever have, 10 years ago. So, I like to be able to tell people that they can overcome things and that your past doesn't have to necessarily determine your future. And so as of today, I'm very satisfied with myself today.
That's an amazing comment about your character running for office, my friend. So I congratulate you for that.
Thank you.
Josh, what is in your mind, what is the proper role of government?
Well, it's going to be long-winded, so I'll keep it kind of short. Essentially, government is here to preserve our rights. Our rights are inalienable and do not come from government. They come from our Creator. Government's sole role is to protect those rights that are inalienable, granted by God to us.
Well, that was pretty good. Short.
I thought you'd like it.
So, Tammy, what guidelines would you use when voting?
So I have set up 4 main guidelines for myself, and one of them has to be the Constitution. That's the first and foremost. And I recently had the chance to testify in front of our legislative committee with the State Affairs to protect and uphold our Constitution, because unfortunately, we're not seeing that done so much, and we haven't for the last several years. So first and foremost, any bill, any law, anything that comes through in front of me, first thing I'm going to ask is it constitutional? The second thing is it something that we need? Do we need something like this? Or is it something that we can get rid of? I love what Lori said about going through and getting rid of bills and laws we just don't need, because I completely agree with that. We're always passing things, but we're never taking anything to the books. And then the next one is how much is it going to cost? All these things that we pass, it seems like every legislative session have cost involved. And it could be on the state level, it could be on the federal level, but there's always cost involved with the things that we pass. And then the last one is it something necessary, and how is it going to a positive way or in a negative way? Is it something that they even want? We have the CBD oil that's been heard this session, and all the people that I've talked to, it's something that they feel that we need here in Idaho as an option in their healthcare. And I believe as well, I have no issue with it. So these are things, these are criteria that I've set that I think will help and are necessary when looking at legislation. And so those are the criteria that I'm going to use and follow when I'm in office.
Nice, thank you very much. Lyle, what is who or what entity should have control on education curriculum in Idaho?
Well, I believe right now we receive something less than 10% of our overall education budget from the federal government, and yet that federal source, federal education, however you want to dribble it down, basically controls what Idaho gets. And as a nation, we are lagging behind, and our advertisements tell us that Idaho's lagging behind more in the 50 states. And I think we should take that control back and not allow it to come from, in essence, the UN through Common Core, and put in a good system that kids actually get a good education and come out of high school They can balance a checkbook and they can think for themselves and learn for themselves.
Thank you. So we've got the final round before we open it up to Q&A. We'll begin this last segment with Lori. How would you define your political position in less than 5 words?
Constitutional, conservative, nonviolent, liberty, integrity.
Nice. Thank you for that. Glenneda, how would you rate the Idaho legislature in terms of transparency and accountability? Sorry.
Well, I'm going to err on the side of grace. I'm going to give it C- because there's some really good ones that are really just doing their very best to bring us what's going on in the Capitol and what's coming forward. So I'm going to err on this side of grace and give the overall a C-. But what I find is interesting when you start exposing and bringing light to a lot of their voting records, how instantly they get defensive and kind of ugly with you. And to me, that almost makes me think of my teen kids when you ask where they've been, knowing where they've been, and they instantly get defensive. And so I think that's the reason why so many of us are coming forward, because we're just kind of tired of that. You know, we are the boss and they are our representatives, representing us. And I want to go there and I want to bring transparency. I want to bring all the issues to the people, and I want to have a relationship with the people that I'm serving. And you can only have that relationship with them if you're transparent and you're accountable. You know, how can they keep you accountable if you don't have a relationship, which comes with transparency? And for some reason, a lot of our representatives are totally avoiding that aspect of it. And there's so many avenues that we can bring that transparency. There's no excuse not to have it. And I'm being nice, C-.
Okay. Michael, the next question's for you. Can you talk to us for a few moments about health freedom and why it's so important to you and your family?
Yeah, Tom, this is something that's very personal to me. I've been writing about for a long time. In fact, you can go back 7 years and find articles by me where I talk about pregnant women that took the flu shot and then lost their children. And you can go back 7 years and find articles by me talking about children that were vaccinated and that were perfectly fine and then developed autism all of a sudden. You know, I believe that we should be able to make the health decisions for ourselves and our own families and not the government. And one thing that I'm really talking to a lot of voters about is CBD oil and medicinal marijuana. In fact, I was just at the State House in Boise and I was testifying on the CBD bill. And there was a family there, a family where CBD oil had stopped the seizures that their little boy was having. But then they had to take him to the hospital for some reason. They couldn't administer the CBD oil. The seizures returned and their child almost died. And so as they were testifying to the committee there, they were in tears as they were describing how that if the CBD oil was not legalized fully in Idaho, that they were going to continue giving CBD oil to their son to keep him alive. We need to get the medicine that families need for their children here in Idaho. We need to make sure they have access to CBD oil and medicinal marijuana. And I'm going to fight for these things in Washington.
Thank you. Rocky, if you could only get one thing accomplished in your term, what do you suppose that would be?
Well, despite how passionate I am about state sovereignty with the federal government managing over 68% of our lands, and how passionate I am about the criminal justice system, since we're ranked 44th in the nation and our parole completion rate is 46th in the nation, I would probably have to say that education is the most pertinent policy that I would want to push forward. If we were able to move education back to a local and individual control, we could educate our kids on what morale basically is. And this would help take care of a lot of the other issues, because if our children were educated not under the confines of what the federal government deems they need to learn, we would have a much more educated generation coming up that can better handle some of the stuff that we might not be able to get through at the time that we'll be in office, such as we might not be able to take back, all 68% of the federal lands that are being managed. But if we were able to at least educate our kids and not have this indoctrination type institution where the federal government just pumps them full of whatever they, deem necessary, then we could actually have a generation of people that are far more educated about economics and what the government really looks like, and they can be able to carry on the legacy. But if we continue to neglect education, then the next generation could be just as ignorant as the generation that we have today.
Man, thank you for that.
Anyways, I mean, if as long as we can progress it forward, just raise it from the 40th, just get out of the bottom percentile. Sorry, never mind.
Let's see, Josh, your opponent is a Republican. Why should people vote for you?
It's a great question. For me, when I look at the Republican Party, I look at the Republican platform we have here in Idaho, and then I look at how people are voting. And I want to measure that. And with this spectrum, you have what I would call rhinos. Unfortunately, that's the name they've gotten, but it's true. You have people who are Republican in name only. And on the far other end of the spectrum, you have conservatives, people who want to implement conservative values. I align more so on the right, if not completely, as a conservative. So for me, when I see somebody in my own party voting on this end of the spectrum, I'm realizing that I'm not having my voice represented. My family's not having their voice represented. And what we were being sold was essentially not what we're getting. So for me, I want to make sure that if we are not having it to where we're having conservative values and principles implemented, then I'm going to stand up and I'm going to go forward and I'm going to promote those. And my guidelines will be the United States Constitution, the Idaho State Constitution. Is this bill constitutional? If it's not, then it's not going to be something that I'm going to vote in favor of. Outside of that, we need somebody who will listen to the constituents. And unfortunately, in many cases, we don't have that in our current district. So I want to be that person who will carry that torch and that voice and represent the conservatives here in our district.
Sounds awesome. Lyle, you get the last question before we open it up to the online listeners.
Okay.
What is the backbone of the Constitution of the USA?
Well, I would say predominantly it's the first two amendments, the right to free speech, religion, to assemble publicly. The Second Amendment protects the first one, but it protects all of the Bill of Rights, which really gives the people the backbone that the government, the federal government, the state government is not allowed to crush us, the citizenry.
Awesome. Okay. Well, that concludes the questions that I have. So I guess we can start looking up at the chat here. I'm not sure if you guys can see these or not. Can you see the chat, or is that just me?
No, Tom, that's just you. If you go over to the Q&A box down there at the bottom, there's 11 questions there.
Oh, I see.
Yep.
All I got to do is read them then?
That's it.
Okay, so Jay asked, let's see, is this to all panelists, or how do I know? Let's see, I guess it's to all of them. So do you believe that it is fair to allow large corporations big tax cuts to come to town? In my opinion, we should offer those mom and pop the breaks instead. You guys, I guess, can all take a stab at that. It doesn't really say to who it is.
Okay, well, I'll start with that. That's fine. No, we shouldn't be offering big tax breaks to big companies that come in. We shouldn't be picking and choosing who gets tax breaks and who doesn't. It should be a fair transaction. It's great to want to get other businesses to come in, but our small businesses are what actually makes things function and makes things run the best. A lot of this is done through urban renewal, which I'm learning more and more about, and how much it actually hurts the communities that you find it in. And that what we're being told regarding urban renewal isn't what is actually transpiring. It's actually costing us money, and it's costing the taxpayers much more in their taxes. And when you're giving these large businesses, these corporate businesses, these tax breaks, who is held responsible for the loss in those tax revenues? It's the taxpayers and the small businesses. So no, we need to not be picking and choosing who gets tax breaks and who doesn't.
Awesome. A question, just to interrupt a moment. Am I supposed to be hitting the answer live button before I ask the question? Anybody?
No.
I don't have to click any of those?
No,
okay.
I don't.
No,
All
you're
right,
good to
cool.
go.
So then I guess we're going to open that up to the rest of you guys. Do you want me to repeat the question?
No, I'll go next. I'm with
Okay.
Tammy. No, there shouldn't be any special perks. It should be, if there is going to be any perks, it should be for the people that have lived here forever, that have had businesses here forever. And, to bring in, if we have the lower taxes like we were talking, that's going to be a perk enough for these other corporations to come in. But somewhere, why are we giving these larger tax breaks to these corporations? It's becoming a burden onto these small mom and pops businesses, because now they have to compete in a different realm of things, but yet they're still having to pay taxes and they don't. And so what happens is we're losing so many of our downtowns are disappearing because the small mom and pops cannot compete with these corporations that are getting tax breaks.
Thank you.
I'd like to hop on that next, if that's possible.
Yep.
So, absolutely against urban renewal development. What we're seeing, and I 100% agree with both people who answered before me, what we're finding is it's very discouraging for these homegrown businesses that start in Idaho. And what is the answer we're telling entrepreneurs here in our state? We're telling them, go ahead, follow your dreams, do what you think is going to provide the best life for you and your family, but at the same time, we're going to give your competitor millions of dollars off in tax breaks. And it's not only at the state level that we're finding this. What's often happening is we'll have companies who are started here, who are working here, they're paying their taxes just like any other business, and then we want to lure in another company, and we offer them over $1 million in tax breaks over an 8-year period. Then they decide, okay, we like this, we're going to continue to stay in Idaho. Now the cities are offering $1 million or $500,000 over an 8-year period that these companies are getting, and it really sends the wrong message to in the state of Idaho. And we need to be here to say, we're going to support you, and we're going to support you evenly because we want a free and fair market.
I want to chime in too about this, if it's possible, Tom.
Yep, sure.
Okay, so obviously I feel like we're in an echo chamber, so I'm not going to reiterate what's already been iterated, but I just wanted to at least say that my platform is on ethics in Idaho government, which is a D-, and that's shocking and appalling because we think we're doing well here in Idaho, but the truth is, when there's been studies on ethics in government, we are a D-. And I think that this taxation issue is a huge part of where ethics can be compromised, and then cronyism happens. And so this is definitely a big fat no for me, that if anybody gets a tax break, everybody gets a tax break.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So we've got, let's see, Michael, do you want to chime in on that?
Oh, I absolutely do. Yeah, I believe in free markets as well. We're supposed to have a free market system, and when the government picks winners and losers, that goes totally against what we're supposed to be. But I also want to go one step further, and everyone should be paying the same level of taxes, but our taxes here in Idaho are way too high. If you look at the surrounding states, it's a fact that we're one of the higher tax states in the region. And 3 of my opponents have actually worked in the state legislature for a long period of time. And all that time, they kept taxes way too high in Idaho. That's why candidates for governor are saying they have plans for lowering taxes because they've been way too high for way too long. And we need to bring those taxes down.
Well, I hope they're serious about that. Rocky, do you remember the question? You want me to repeat it?
No. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Can you? Okay. I tried to jump in a minute ago and I don't think anybody heard me. So, but once again, we're all in an echo chamber, and that's because we're all principled individuals. But the fact of the matter is that, if there's a benefit, it should be distributed equally among businesses, whether it's mom and pops or corporations. I don't really believe in favoring anybody either way. Especially if I'm going to be in government, because once again, that just comes down to government picking winners and losers, no matter if it's mom and pops or corporations. And I'm sure that we all agree in the idea of contracts and the power of which contracts can have between individuals and an individual and a company. But when the government starts making contracts with companies for tax breaks or if they're going to build infrastructure or whatever, then that's whenever we begin to blur the line between government and cronyism. And so if we're going to have a situation where a company comes in expecting to get some sort of tax break, unless it's divided among everybody, I hesitate to use equally, but unless it's divided among everybody, that's a dangerous situation. So I wouldn't support, once again, government picking winners and losers.
Each according to his need, right? No, I'm just kidding.
Sorry. Chill out, Mark. Good talk, Mark.
Icebreaker. No. So let's see. Picking up the rear. Let's see on this question. Lyle, you want to chime in on that?
Yes. Well, the same thing. I don't want to reiterate what everybody said. I think the comments are fruitful and they're accurate. I often wonder when we give multi-$100,000 breaks or $1 million breaks, who else is getting a benefit from that other than the obvious? And why are they getting the benefit over local people and local businesses? I just don't, it's unethical.
Awesome, thank you. So the next question is for Michael. Sorry to cut you guys out there. Michael, how long do you plan to be in office? I completely believe in term limits to eliminate lifetime appointments and rhino effect. I see and hear more fifth from you than anyone else, so would like an answer.
Yeah, I'm very much in favor of term limits. If you go onto the website, michaelsnyderforcongress.com, and go on the issues page, you'll see we've got our position on term limits, and I believe in term limits. You've got someone like Nancy Pelosi, who at this point can't even put one word in front of the other anymore, But our founding fathers never envisioned this kind of thing. But because Nancy Pelosi, she's got a great political machine. She can raise tons of money. She's got name recognition. She can hold that seat as long as they can keep carting her out there. But our founders didn't want that. We should not want that either, because we need constantly fresh blood coming in. Now, of course, it's going to be really, really hard to get this through Congress, getting them to willingly limit their time in office at their political careers. That's going to be really hard to get past, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't try, and we will try. Now, in terms of going to Congress, Rome isn't built in a day, and it's going to take a while to implement the Make America Great Again agenda, turn this country in a fundamentally different direction. Because with Donald Trump in the White House, that's what we've got. We've got a window of opportunity to take our government back. And that's what we need to do, to move it in a fundamentally conservative direction. While for decades we've been marching towards socialism, we've been marching toward a godless government. And if we want to take our country back, we need good, dedicated, true conservatives, pro-Trump people to go to Washington. So we're actually working with dozens of candidates around the country, promoting them, trying to get a whole team to Washington to drain the swamp, to fundamentally change the way Congress operates, and to move our nation back to a constitutional republic.
Nice, thank you very much. So let's see, the next question is, and I guess this is to everybody, where do each of you stand on a true stand your ground law, like what was voted down in committee today? Let's start with the ladies. Lori, you want to chime in first?
Absolutely. Okay, so I actually will only settle for the Constitution when it comes to stand your ground and any kind of armament. And so this can be construed in any way, but obviously the citizenry should be able to defend themselves and their property. And so I would say absolutely you have a right to defend your property, and your life is included in that because you've dedicated portions of your life in order to acquire your property. You've traded life for property.
So we don't have to run away from a perpetrator on our own property, huh?
No, sir.
Imagine that. Glenneda, would you like to answer the question?
Absolutely. I am completely for Second Amendment. And I really want to encourage people to read the Declaration of Independence, because when you read that, you really understand why we have the Second Amendment. And it is, you know, we have to stand our ground, not only because they gave it to us, not just to protect our property, to protect ourselves from a tyrannical government. And it says, shall not be infringed. Again, words mean something, and that means it shall not be infringed. There's no, you know, nothing else. That's it, period. So, and we have the right to stand our ground. And I don't like the fact that somebody breaking in my house has more rights than I do to protect my house. That don't make any sense to me. But I am completely for Second Amendment. And I want to encourage again, everyone to read the Declaration of Independence to understand why we have the Second Amendment.
Thank you for that. Michael, would you like to chime in on that?
Yeah, I sure would. You know, when it comes to the Second Amendment, I will never move a single inch. And so I've been going all around the district saying we need the very strong stand your ground laws in all 50 states. I've been going around the district telling people that, you know, because everyone in this race and every politician in Idaho, Republican, says they're 100% pro-gun. But I'm the only one candidate in this race that wants to go back and repeal many of the major federal gun laws that already exist. And I'm the only candidate to propose that we abolish the BATF. Like others have said, the Second Amendment says the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And I take that very seriously.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Rocky, what are your thoughts?
Well, Glenneda nailed it on the Second Amendment, so I won't rehash that, but we should be able to defend ourselves for sure. You know, not just ourselves, but our life, our liberty, our property. This is the concept of self-ownership. So if we own ourselves, we own the byproduct of our labor, and in the Constitution it gives us the right to defend it, then I don't see why there's even a debate over something like this. So
good answer, good answer. Josh?
All right, so for me with this, first I want to thank Greg Pruitt and everybody at the Idaho Second Amendment Alliance and Alex Kincaid for their work in trying to get this passed. It's a very important piece of legislation. Absolutely 100% support what they're doing, and I want to paint a picture. If I'm in my house, and let's say it's a hallway, right, and the door's in the middle, and somebody kicks it in, should I have to wait to determine if they're going to turn the opposite way and grab my TV or charge at me and try and take my life? We should always start out with the presumption of innocence. It should never be where we're trying to build our case why we defended ourselves. It should always be that we start out with presumption of innocence, and that the state has to build their case showing that we did act in a negligent way that was illegal.
Oh, awesome. Thanks. Tammy, did I get you yet?
No, not yet.
To put you on top with the rest of them. I totally apologize. No disrespect intended.
Okay. None taken.
Good.
Yeah, I echo pretty much what everybody else has said. You know, we have to be very mindful of the bills that are brought forth in our legislature. And yeah, the Idaho Second Amendment Alliance, they have done a great job. They have a great bill that is a stand your ground bill. It's House Bill 444, and we can't get a hearing for it. So we need people to call the representatives and tell them that this bill deserves a hearing. We want real stand your ground law put into place, not something that's watered down and not something that doesn't actually make any changes. We need a real bill brought forth that actually will protect the citizens of Idaho, to be able to protect their homes and their families and their possessions, and to be able to do what is needed if someone does attempt to break into their home or to harm them in any way, shape, or form, that they're able to protect themselves without fear of being criminalized and prosecuted and having to prove themselves that their intent was to protect themselves. And so we need to really have people call and start getting a hold of their representatives that are current and ask for House Bill 444 to be heard.
Thank you for that. Lyle, any comments on that? Stand your ground law?
Stand your ground law. Yes, sir. I believe that it should go to committee. It should have a hearing. It should pass. It should go to both floors of both sides of the legislature and get passed. I don't think that we should be in a position that we have to rely on a prosecutor to not prosecute us for protecting the life of our family members and people in our churches and so forth.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. So if I'm not going to get confused here, the next question is for Michael. As a representative of Idaho, given the history of religious morality's effects on Idaho politics, how do you propose to bring individual liberties to the forefront in terms of policy while not disenfranchising neither of the religious minority or those that value the liberty that ensures their religious freedom, but don't want it to dominate policy? Wow.
Yeah, that's a complex question, but let me try to answer that. And, you know, I've made no bones about the fact that I'm an unashamed Christian. I'm a Bible believing Christian. I've got a personal relationship with Jesus Christ, and everything that I am and all of my political positions and everything comes from that basis. And if we want to truly make America great again, we need to get back to the values that made it great in the first place. And our nation, our culture, our Constitution were birthed out of a culture of Bible-believing Christians. And that the Constitution guarantees that everyone gets to worship God the way they want to worship God, including people that don't want to worship God at all, atheists, people of other religions, because our founders just escaped religious tyranny in Europe. So they wanted to come to a nation where nobody was going to tell them how they had to worship God. And I believe in that very, very strongly. And so, the reason why I'm so passionate about liberty and freedom, and those of us on the right, most of us, because we have, as a foundation, a biblical worldview, and I want to take that biblical worldview to Washington, D.C.
Excellent. Very good. Very good. I met an atheist once. He said, you know, it's because of the biblical foundations of this country that gave me the opportunity to decide not to believe. And I thought, wow. Anyway, so let's see. This question's from Mark to all candidates. If you win, what steps will you take to make sure that you never forget that you are a servant of the people and not some elected royalty? We need people who will remember that they are servants of the people. If you guys don't mind, in order for me not to get confused, we can start with Lori on that one, if you don't mind.
Okay, so I think the question was, how do we make sure that we don't start acting like royalty if we get elected?
Basically, yeah.
Was that the question?
It is.
Okay. Well, obviously, we have to be grounded in some sort of principles so that you're not a reed in the wind. And you have to have good, principled people around you, which I have always had, well, at least for the last 10 years since I've been politically active, and will continue to have. And so I think that's going to be very important. But ultimately, and this is not a thing that people like to hear a lot, but ultimately it's upon the people to hold everybody accountable. So I plan on praying daily like I always do. And, you know, obviously reflecting off the Constitution to make sure that, you know, I'm not acting arrogant and righteous. And then if you, sir, who asked the question, feel like I've done something arrogant or oppressive, then it's incumbent upon you to hold us accountable to that.
Awesome. Thank you. Glenneda?
Well, it's kind of in the name, you know, especially as representative. It says representative, not lords. So we're not lords, we're not kings, we're servants, you know, and that kind of goes with my motto. One of the main reasons that I'm doing this is for my heart to serve the people. There's so much going on, and there's so much hurt and so much going on with people, that we need to have good people to represent them, that remember their place. I am your representative, and you are basically my boss. But like Lori was saying, citizens have to be engaged, because you need to be watching and, and pray for us. Just there's more to it than just giving us your complaints and thinking that we're going to fix your problem. Because sometimes, you make us lords. I've been looking at a lot of the representatives, and people are coming to them as if they're saviors. They're not saviors, they're representatives. They don't know all the answers. I don't know all the answers. Together, like Trump, he says, I surround myself with good people. We're going to surround ourselves with good people. And it's, again, that relationship that will keep us humble. But we need you, the citizens, to be engaged with that.
You guys are getting me all excited. Let's see. We got Tammy next. What will you do to make sure that you don't act like royalty?
Oh, she's
like I'm a queen. Yeah. I love what's been said so far, and I completely agree with that. I want to add that I think there's two things. The first one is that we need to bring ethics back into our government. Ethics are not being held accountable, that are representatives, that are senators, when they do things that they shouldn't be doing, there is no consequences in regards to that. So we need to make sure that there's ethics established back into our Capitol. The other thing is that we need to educate people and help them to understand their role in government. It's not the reverse. It's not the government's role in people. It's the people's role in government. And so we need to help them to understand and to help educate them the best way that we can. And there's many ways to go about that, starting in our education system, to be able to teach the proper role of government and the proper role of the people with the government. So those are two main things that I just like to add with what everybody else has said so far. And, and I have a good network of people around me, both here on a state level and on a national level. And I can guarantee you that they will remind me very quickly if I start getting a head that's bigger than my body. So that's not going to be an issue. And yeah, I echo what Glenneda said, that I love to serve. I love to serve people, and I want to be able to help them help themselves. The government's role is not to do everything for the people. It's to help them to be able to help themselves and to give them those opportunities and to protect their freedoms and their rights. And that's what I want to do, is I want to make sure that they're able to help themselves.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Michael?
Yeah, three things really quickly. Being grounded in your values. That's why my wife and I start every day in the Word of God and in prayer. Number two, surrounding yourself with the right people. That's why we've already begun approaching some of the top conservatives throughout the state of Idaho to be part of our congressional team. Number three, we want to set a new paradigm for what it actually means to be a member of Congress, because we're used to electing people. They go up to Washington, we never hardly hear from them again. But we're going to be in constant communication, in particular with the central committees, being accountable, being transparent, and being constant two-way communication between the party at home, the central committees in particular, and us in Washington, and that's going to keep us from getting a big head.
Awesome, thank you. Rocky?
Well, I was sitting here thinking about humility, and I don't know how many people that are listening have ever had an issue with substance abuse of any kind, but as we go through the journey to regain ourselves and our sobriety, we have to take a deep look at humility, and we really have to learn how to be humble. Not only that, but we also have to learn how to hold other people accountable, and how we have to accept other people holding us accountable. Being in treatment centers where you even have to be held accountable for, eating peanut butter and small stuff like that, when you're not supposed to. So what I'm getting at with it is that I have a level of humility that I've learned. It's not something that I just claim to have. I've actually lived this and experienced this. And so I enter the office humbling myself to the people and anticipating that the people will also hold me accountable for my actions. But I will tell you that every vote that I cast will be in the favor of increasing liberty.
Awesome. So let's see. Did I get Lyle in on that yet?
No, you didn't. I'll hop in here. Yeah, well, I'm not running for the position of king, and ultimately, you voters, we are trying to sway your hearts to vote for us because we want to go to Boise to make a difference. From what we see going on there, especially in the districts that are represented here tonight, and I do like what Michael said, starting the day with the word being before the king, and to be a servant to the people, to return the power to the people, and not to rule over them.
Awesome. Josh?
May not be the most popular answer out there, but for me, there's only one king, and it's my savior. For me, it's a big thing of there's a couple aspects that go into keeping people in line. Part of that is accountability, and that comes from what you're doing with Christians in government. You're teaching people how to hold elected officials accountable. With that as well, again, with that transparency, I want to bring that back to the people. And people can see that by looking at my record as far as the Idaho Political Prisoners Foundation. There wasn't a single dime that wasn't there for scrutiny of the public. So that's what I want to bring back to the local government. Again, being grounded in my Christian faith, my belief in our Constitution, both state and federal, is what's going to keep me grounded. That and you guys.
Nice. Excellent. So this question is going to be a tough one. I hope you guys can brace yourself. And it's to every one of you. So we'll go ahead and start from the top with Lori again, if that's all right. Where do each of you stand on the Second Amendment? And what would you recommend we do to eliminate the school mass shooting events that we're experiencing in America today? Lori?
Okay, so I'm very uncompromising on the Second Amendment. I think it's very clear. It was written in simple English, not legalese. And so no compromises. And in fact, I understand it was to protect against tyranny. So to me, that means that, well, if taken literally, everybody should have tanks, bazookas, and these types of things, because ultimately we have to be armed enough to be able to tame an out of control government. Okay. So now that's a completely separate issue from these school shootings. Okay. So the school shootings then are like a soul problem. There's issues with heart and soul of people. And so maybe we need to plant friends in schools to help kids that feel lonely and things like that. But I don't think Trump is off base with the 20% of trained employees, people that want to do it. So nobody's being forced to do anything. And I think that would be extremely helpful, because obviously if law enforcement stands down or is protective of themselves, if I only have a cell phone or I have a gun and I'm in that situation, do I call law enforcement or do I protect myself? I think people should have a right to protect themselves.
Awesome. Thank you. Glenneda, where are you on the Second Amendment?
Let me think now.
Right.
I think I pretty much stated where I stand on the Second Amendment, but I agree with Lori too. The school shootings and the Second Amendment are different issues. The shootings in our school has to do with our morals and our integrity, our ethics. It'd be nice, hey, let's put back in the 10 Commandments where it says, thou shalt not kill. And they see that every day. We need to start teaching our children that, just because you're upset with somebody, you just don't go in and, hurt them in a way. But, we also need to look at, we're not in a perfect world. And we're going to have these issues. But, if we could train, I kind of put something out there because I've been thinking about it. We have a lot of veterans that need work and that are already trained. Well, and our schools too are having maintenance issues. They have just a few guys in there who can't take care of everything. So I was thinking, why not maybe hire maintenance/security veterans to take care of some of those issues, and especially with those teachers that are not comfortable in practicing their Second Amendment to protect our children. But I think the number one thing that would help with schools is parents. Parents need to get more engaged with your children. And, I'm not saying all parents are that way, but I think that a huge part of it is we're in a society anymore where our children are watching violence on TV. Everywhere you turn, there's violence on TV. The video games is amazing how almost realistic it is. And I think parents need to start getting a little bit more engaged with their kids and seeing why they're watching, and then maybe even seeing if there's trigger things. Oh, and then one more thing that I think is an issue with the school shooting is the drugs we put them on. We need to really look at what we're putting in our children. And, so there's many issues. I don't think it's a Second Amendment issue. I really don't think it's a gun issue. I think it's deeper than that.
Awesome. Good thought on that. Tammy?
Yeah, I 100% support the Second Amendment. It was put into place to be able to have the citizens protect themselves from a tyrannical government. And there's no other provisions in there about it. It is straightforward, to the point. On the school shootings, I have gone over this quite a few times because I have kids that go to public school. And I think the number one thing that we need to do to begin with is to remove these ridiculous gun-free zones. I just read an article that says that 98% of the school shootings, or shootings in general, actually have occurred in gun-free zones. And that's atrocious. I mean, we are basically giving an invitation to anyone that wants to come in and do harm to come into our schools because they know no one's going to be armed, and to do whatever they need to do to make themselves feel better or to get notoriety or just whatever it is. So the first and foremost, I think we need to get rid of the gun-free zones. Second, yes, there is a heart and a mental issue going on. And I think there's a lot of different factors that play into that. I just read another article about how there's over 1 million kids right now that are under the age of 6 years old that are on some sort of antidepressant medication. That is awful. I don't know how we're doing it. We're going to have these kids that are all hooked on these mental psychosis type drugs that have numerous side effects. And who knows what's going to trigger them or set them off to go in and do something like this. So that is a huge concern. I love the idea of arming teachers and staff and for them to be able to protect their students. They're already doing this in some schools. There was a sheriff recently, I believe it was in Arizona, after the school shooting in Florida, that offered to give classes. I think they had 50 spots. And the last count, I think they had almost 700 teachers and staff that had signed up to take this class, to be able to be trained and to be able to do it. And then I also agree, yes, veterans, police officers that are retired, anything that we could do to get them in there because they're already trained, they already know how to handle situations such as that. And so I think that would be a great benefit to have within our schools to protect our kids, and to go back to training kids. Teach them about guns so that they understand what a gun is, how you handle a gun, what it's for, so that they have that education. I know we have a bill that Representative Nate has that is giving education classes about guns in the schools. And he tried to get it passed last year and it got shot down. And so I'm hoping it can get passed this year, because I think that's a great thing to be able to have the kids learn about, is to learn how to handle guns and to handle them properly. Not what they see on TV, not what they see in video games, but to actually learn how to properly handle a gun. So.
Awesome. Thank you. Michael?
Yeah, thank you, Tom. 3 things really quickly. Number 1, gun control does not work. Look at the city of Chicago, which has some of the toughest gun laws in the entire nation, and violent crime is off the charts. Meanwhile, here in North Idaho, Virtually everyone has a gun, and my wife and I sleep very soundly at night because we know that anyone that wanted to make a career of breaking into homes up here would have a very short career indeed. Number two, these mind-altering pharmaceutical drugs, it is a fact that most of, if not nearly all of the mass shooters we've seen in recent years have been on these mind-altering pharmaceutical drugs. We need to start taking a close look at those and the connection they have to mass shootings. Number three, when I was growing up, I went to public schools all my life, and not once did it ever occur to me that someone might come into my school and start shooting. Never crossed my mind a single time. But we pushed God out of government, we pushed God out of the schools, and then now look what's happening today. We pushed God out of everything, and now we're reaping the consequences.
Did we lose Tom?
I think we might have.
Tom.
Looks like we did. Okay, well, who is up next? Who hasn't gone yet?
I think it's Rocky, maybe.
I'll go ahead.
Rocky.
I'll go ahead and take this.
Tom's back.
Is Tom back?
We just can't hear him. You're muted, Tom.
You're muted, Tom.
That's embarrassing.
There you go.
It's all good. Go ahead, Rocky.
All right. Rocky.
All right, not a problem. So I grew up in Alaska, and then I've lived here in Idaho, and this is where my parents grew up. So I'm really familiar with guns. I'm really familiar with the respect that we all must have for guns, despite the fact of being a strong Second Amendment advocate. You know, we all need respect. But once again, like everybody else said, the school shootings and the Second Amendment are two separate issues. And, you know, it's peculiar that before the late 90s, we never really had any school shootings, or they weren't as prevalent as they are today. And a lot of this comes from the publicizing it on, publicizing not just the events, but the actual people in the news. And these kids are going out and shooting because this is more of a cultural issue. So it's the cultural issue is a problem that is being pushed from this progressive agenda that we've had overtaken the nation. And you know, so I suggest putting qualified personnel in schools for security too, but I really believe that there needs to be more of a balance. So to start off, we could begin implementing some of the stuff that they have in hospitals where there's a emergency or a shooting or something like that, and they actually have a procedure where all the doors get locked down, and it basically turns rooms into panic rooms. And I honestly have no idea why we haven't started putting this into public schools since, you know, Columbine. It would only make sense. You know, we put them in hospitals. Why can't we put them in schools? Children are just as important as the sick. So with that being said, I strongly believe that we should have teachers that are maintaining the students and the crowd. I don't want a teacher taking off and leaving a room full of kids to go be a hero. I want the teacher there in order to maintain the students in the room, and I want the security there to take care of people and take care of the shooters in an emergency situation. But then I don't want these people with these guns to be enforcing a school policy. So we still need our standard hall monitors as well. And so if we have these three different elements, I think that we could balance a crisis situation a lot better than we do right now.
Excellent. Hey, Tom, really fast, let me just jump in here. If we can try to keep the comments a bit shorter, right now you guys are coming up to about 2 minutes here with some of these. Great responses across the board, fantastic, but let's definitely try to keep them as short as we can to keep on moving through.
So we're up to Josh now.
All right, mine will be short and sweet. So again, two separate issues. Second Amendment is not an issue, that you're right. As far as the school shootings, for me, I'm going to pair it a little bit, but I'll keep it short for that reason. I believe the biggest thing is we do need to remove making it gun-free zones. We need people to know that when they enter a facility, there is the understanding that if they enter there to harm somebody else, there's the ability of people to defend themselves and others around them. So remove the school gun ban as far as that goes as well. Offering teachers the ability to be armed. And I did like Trump's proposal as far as offering a bonus or some sort of incentive for teachers to do so and go through that training. Outside of that as well, looking at these prescription drugs, a lot of times what we're finding is kids are growing up on these drugs and they have no sense of self-identity, and it's causing a lot of issues. So there's a facet that we need to look at as far as all of it goes.
Awesome. Lyle?
Yes, sir. Well, I think one of the number one things is spiritual. I stand on the Second Amendment as it was written and intended. The school thing is spiritual, it's cultural, it's pharmakia, as the Bible would put it, mind-altering drugs. As was mentioned earlier, if we, statistics are tough. They're really tough for progressives. I don't gather how that's so difficult, but Chicago's a great thing to look at. No guns, ultra gun violent. Look at Idaho, lots of guns. We see very little violent crimes committed where there are lots of guns present. We protect the president, we protect high-level targets, we protect money with guns. Are our kids not important enough to protect them when we lock them up in a building and then we're silly enough to put a sign out front to say sheep for the slaughter? Goodness. I don't get it.
Thank you so much for that. Well, I don't think, Christian, I don't think I have any more questions that are here. So I don't know how you want to proceed with the rest of this.
Yeah, you should actually. There's 18 more I see here on my side. I've got a bunch more coming in on Facebook.
Well, I had them before my computer decided to glitch, but it must have wiped them all out.
Did it? So if you go back to Q&A, you don't see them?
Not at all.
Okay, I'll go ahead and throw out the next one. Let me go ahead and search through here. Let's see what we've got.
Very good.
Okay, somebody asks here, how do you feel Butch Otter's leadership or lack thereof is going?
Hmm.
Okay.
Nobody wants to take that one, huh?
I'll be gracious, as Glenneda said, and I'll give him a D.
I'm glad
Lori
he's
Shewmaker here.
Uh,
I'll say it's time to go out to pasture.
I'm just happy to see him go.
and so that leaves Glenneda
Oh, I said I was glad he was retiring.
and Michael.
Man, Otter is a big time rhino that we should have gotten rid of a long time ago.
Josh?
It'll be good to see some new blood in there. I'll leave it at that. And that's a nice answer I got.
That's good of you, Josh.
Yeah.
Tammy?
Yeah, it's time for some fresh people to take those roles. Yeah, it's definitely needed and necessary at this time.
It's interesting. It's interesting the consistency that liberty-minded people have, isn't it? So are you up for the next question there, Christian? I'm out.
I sure am. Okay, so what are each of your positions on changing the law to be relative to the crime regarding time served for child molestation? Currently, the system is a joke. What do you think?
Wish I could answer that.
Me too.
Okay, Lori Shewmaker, I guess I'll take.
Yeah,
I'll
take
start.
it. Take it away.
Much trepidation, because it seems like a very and I have an unusual view when it comes to as like criminal behavior, is that each crime should be judged on its own merit, not precedent or case law. And so, that's where I would always start with that. But ultimately, can you cure somebody from sex crime activity? This is a question I need more education on, because all I have right now is my gut reaction, and I don't think it's curable.
Good thought. Good thought. Glenneda?
Well, again, it's kind of go back to the moral issues that we have going on. as far as regarding the time served for molestation, I haven't studied on that. I don't know what time they currently serve, but I would be this is a pretty sensitive subject for me. I'm also thinking that the age of the person molesting the child needs to be having, like, if they're 16 or 14, or, you know, there's, I think that also needs to have some consequences as well, because you're seeing a lot of younger people actually molesting little kids as well. And so, but it comes back to a moral issue. And I think consequences and discipline really fixes a lot of problems.
Awesome. Tammy?
Oh, I think she's frozen.
I believe that the punishment should fit the crime, but I have seen so many, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay. I have seen several cases now where there has been molestation that has occurred, and it seems that those that have committed that crime get basically a slap on the wrist to some extent. The other problem that I see happening, though, and this stemmed in the European area, where pedophilia is really being promoted as a natural thing for people to do. And I'm seeing that happening here in the United States now, where there's psychiatrists and psychologists and professors and people that have written books now on how, yeah, molestation, pedophilia, it's normal. It's not anything different than, you know, being homosexual or something along those lines. So our whole basis, our whole foundation is trying to be changed. And if we're going to start going down that's slippery slope, that's going to be it's not going to end good for anybody. So I think there's probably some ways that we need to look into how we sentence people in regards to molestation. And so it probably should go through a reform of some sort, to where we can sit down and really look at where we're at and how we're handling those types of cases.
Okay. Michael?
Thanks, Tom. I have a 3-year-old daughter. In fact, you guys may have heard her off in the distance crying tonight. And many of you, I haven't told yet that Miranda's pregnant again, and we're going to have a child due in July. And so the thought of anyone harming my little ones is unimaginable. And yet today on the left, some elements of the radical left are promoting pedophilia. And we've got hotbeds of pedophilia around the nation, one of them being Washington, D.C. I'm sure everyone on the panel today understands that. And so when we go to Washington, Christian and I have already talked about this, we want to fight pedophilia, we want to fight sex trafficking, we want to fight sex crimes in general, because there's no place for that in our society, and we cannot be lenient on those types of crimes.
Awesome. Good thought. Rocky.
Well, I strongly do believe in the non-aggression principle, the fact that we shouldn't aggress against one another. With that being said, these types of crimes are acts of aggression. Nevertheless, we do have a criminal justice system where everybody deserves their day in court. So everybody still deserves a chance to be able to go to court and hold a jury trial. Nevertheless, if someone is convicted, the crime should definitely fit the punishment. That is a problem that we do have. We have extreme punishment for drug offenses and pretty lax sentencing for sex offenders. So, I mean, there's an imbalance there. The age of consent is highly pertinent to every single case. Idaho promotes having one of the best sex offender rehabilitation programs there is in the Epic Cottonwood. But the problem is that these numbers are skewed because we're constantly, once again, throwing people into jail who are 18 that are sleeping with their 16-year-old partner. And so we're throwing these people in jail and putting them up there with other people that are molesting babies. And then whenever they get out and they never reoffend, we count that as a rehabilitated offender. So we don't even have true numbers to judge if we even have a successful program or not. So, we need to start taking a realistic outlook on these on these problems so that we can gain better statistics on what's actually going on from committing the crime to rehabilitation.
Awesome. Thank you. Josh?
Yeah, so I'm not completely educated on this specific subject and what the sentences look like. I do agree with Lori as far as the fact we should have it to where we're not basing it off of case law. The punishment should match the crime. What I am concerned about, though, is when I do hear that there are people incarcerated for victimless crimes that surpass those of people who act in an inappropriate way with a minor child. That's where a concern, truly becomes drawn for me. So it is something we need to look at. It is something we need to find that balance and make sure that, again, people who are sitting in prison for victimless crimes aren't sitting there longer than somebody who molested a child.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Josh. And Lyle?
Again, I'm not as well versed in the law and what kind of sentences are being meted out in the court, but it seems to me that they're rather light just because of the cultural overall seems to be bending toward the progressive idea, and I'm not in favor of that at all. Children are children and they should be protected, and people who are fooling with children should have to pay a very heavy consequence for that.
Awesome. Awesome. Christian, you got another question? I guess this is the last one.
This is the last one. Then we'll go ahead and do closing statements. So we've had a few people ask this. I'm going to go ahead and throw this one out there. Kathy and several others have asked the same question, generally speaking. So here it is. How do you propose to get your message out over and above the establishment Republicans in your races?
Lori, you want to go?
Okay, I'll take the first whack at it.
Excellent.
Okay, so I have every intention of buying signs and, going out and meeting people, perhaps on their doorstep, having little fundraisers. I mean, what does one do? If she has suggestions, we're always open to it. At least I am.
We do. All right, Glenneda.
Well, I think getting our message out over the establishment is just really listening to the people. If we go out and we be about the people and we listen to the people, I think we can win out over the establishment, because I think they're tired of their voices not being heard. And so I'm going to work really hard on being the people's choice. I really want to come to the people, and I want to be their choice and their voice. But I want them to know that I'm going to listen to them. I'm on their team. We're a team. We're we the people. And so as far as the establishment, that's going to be my thing, and and God's will be done. So
good one. Awesome. Thank you. Tammy.
Yeah. If I tell you my whole plan, is that going to spoil it? I don't know.
All right.
But no, I do too. I really want to get out. My area, it's very rural. There's a lot of small towns, small communities. And so I really want to get out into those areas and talk to the people and find out what's on their mind, what they're doing. Because again, I'm there to represent them. I want to know what they have to say, what they think. We may not agree on everything, but we need to have the conversation. We need to be able to have that communication and that connection. So I do plan on doing a bit of that, having, meet and greets and Q&As. This has been a great opportunity, social media. But yeah, it's just really getting out into those areas and communities, to the small businesses, because I think the establishment kind of has their own group that they hang around with that support them and, send out their flyers and that information. But, I haven't seen a lot of people just get out into the community to meet and talk to the people that live there. So I think that's going to be a key thing for me.
Awesome. Cool. Michael, what about you?
Yeah, for my three main opponents, their message kind of boils down to this. I'm pro-life, I'm pro-gun, I'm against Obamacare, and I really don't want to talk about any other hard issues, but I'm a really charming guy, so vote for me. So at the end of the day, it's not really hard to defeat that message, and everywhere we go, the response is absolutely overwhelming. In fact, we were just at a meeting on Friday night. We went in there, we shared for a while, and then at the end, so many people were so enthusiastic, they not only wanted to vote for us, but we started taking down names of volunteers. We went down one side of a page, down the back of a page. We had to start up a second page just because we were getting so many people that wanted to volunteer on our campaign. That's happening wherever we go. So we're out working and out hustling the other guys. And you guys probably know, we weren't supposed to win this campaign. It was supposed to be one of the other guys, but through immense hard work and out hustling and out working, now we're running neck and neck with the more seasoned politicians. And so with less than 80 days to go, it's anyone's ball game. And we believe, based on the trends where the numbers are going, that we are going to win.
Awesome. Beautiful. Beautiful. Rocky?
Yeah, I kind of in agreement. I don't want to really reveal too much because I'm pretty sure that my opponent's going to be doing some advanced recon in order to try to bring me down, since they run a pretty good slander campaign and have enough money to hire on the staff to do the recon because they get all the big donations from big corporations because they're in their pockets. But nevertheless, you know, it's really about name recognition, being the underdog here, making sure that people know that I'm a principled individual and what my name basically is. So the big thing is that it's important that we get out and we find out what's actually bothering the people. I mean, we can sit up here and have our 3 or 4 different pillars that we stand on, but that's only as good as what the people actually care about. So if we have these issues that we care about and they're not the issues that the people care about, then it's really pointless. So it's really important that we are on the same page as our constituents. And yeah, it's basically just getting out there, talking to them, introducing ourselves, making sure that they know that there is another option.
Good. Awesome. Good thought. Josh?
Yeah, so for me, I mean, it's no secret, you know, we're all liberty-minded candidates, which means money doesn't just flow our way. So it is a grassroots movement that we are really trying to implement here. And a big thing we do have to do with that is, you know, people are going to get mailers in the mail, right? Or I'm going to hand these out, either way. But the big thing we have to realize is that many times when you send out mailers, people are tossing them in the garbage without reading them. So what we really have to do to get voters engaged is have things such as town hall meetings, have it where we're going door to door with grassroots teams, where you're spreading the message and what you're trying to implement and listening to the people, and just making sure that you're available to have those calls, making sure that your information is available so people can reach out to you anytime that's needed. The other aspect to that, I would say, is truly just hearing people out and making sure that they understand that you are the person who will carry their voice.
Awesome. Thank you, Josh. Lyle?
To be one, you know, to get together with the citizenry, hopefully help with a little bit of education to get them spurred back into being part of the process, and some town hall stuff, some face-to-face stuff, some small business owners, people we know. And as been said before, it's a grassroots thing. We don't have any big corporations behind us. I don't think anybody on here that I see wants big corporation money. And so we're counting on the public to become the government again.
Awesome. Great. So I guess this is, I guess we're in the final lightning round. Each one of you are going to be, I guess, given a minute to ask the last question. Christian, is that right?
That is correct. Yes, sir.
I guess we let her rip then. So the question would be from you, because I don't show up anything on my questionnaire here either.
Oh, so no, this is the closing statements, right? For each candidate for a minute. So they can just go ahead and rock and roll however you want to start with.
Start from the top, I guess. Lori, go ahead.
Okay, so basically I have dedicated the past decade of my own private, personal time, energy, and money in lobbying for your freedom. Now I want to do it in a more formal setting, and I will not be compromised. And if you think I'm being compromised, then I suggest that you come talk to me and straighten me out. Otherwise, if you want to raise the Idaho government grade from a D- to something better, then I would love for you to vote for me. And I guess that's the biggest thing. Constitution is my marching orders, and integrity is immensely important to me, as well as principles. And there's no compromising on principles, even if you're standing alone.
Awesome. Amen. Thank you so much. Glenneda?
Well, the main reason I'm running is because, again, it's a duty and a responsibility, and I'm willing to do the hard work. I'm a hard worker, and I am about doing the right thing over the easy thing. I'm a Christian, I'm conservative, I'm pretty black and white when it comes to my moral integrity. And so I think that's going to be a blessing to a lot of people, my ability to stand firm on those things. And the things that I don't know, I have such a good group. I mean, look at this group here. We have such a good group of people that we can glean information from, that we can get support from. And you know what's exciting too is I think just by me running so far has really encouraged people to get more engaged in what's going on in our government, because they realize that it is our responsibility. You know, we've been kind of, it's like being an employee and a boss. We've been absent, you know, and then our businesses are going out of business and not showing up every 4 years thinking things are going to change. And I just decided that I want to be that change and be that heart. And I'm hoping to encourage people, to give them hope, to educate them, because putting new people in there really isn't what's going to change what we have going on. It's going to be the people getting engaged is where they're going to be. And so I'm hoping that by me running and being your next representative, that we'll learn together. We'll row this boat together, and we'll make Idaho great again. Let's do this. I'm ready to put in the hard work. I'm a good swimmer. Let's kick this boat. Vote for me May 15th, Glenneda, Zuiderveld.
Thank you so much. Tammy?
Yeah, so thanks again for having this. I really appreciate to be able to participate in that this tonight. For me, yeah, I have just seen so much going on, and I've worked in different capacities in politics and at a local, state level, national level for the past several years. And this election that we have coming up in Idaho, there's going to be a lot of changes that take place. And so people really need to be aware and informed on who they're going to be voting for, and don't wait last minute to do your research. Look into it now, start looking into the candidates, because we're going to have a lot of changes, and it's really going to put Idaho on either a really good path or we're going to go down a really bad path. Mm-hmm. So, and I also agree, engaging the citizens. As a representative, my goal is going to be to keep my citizens informed, the people that I'm representing, and to give them opportunities to be involved, and to try to educate them, again, on the proper role of government and their role within that system. And so I really want to keep people aware of what's going on and how they can help and what they can do to be an engaged citizen, because it comes back to we the people. It's not the government that's going to take care of it. It's not the government that's going to make things better. It's not going to be the government that changes and makes things right. It's the people that have to do that. And so we need people to be engaged. And so, yeah, I am just looking forward to be able to have that opportunity to really make the changes. We have some really good legislators that are in there right now. We need to get a few more in there, because if we can really turn Idaho around and make it a really great state to live in.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Michael?
Thank you, Tom. You've done a great job this evening. In this election, we don't have to settle for second best. Our numbers are surging, and with your help, we can win this thing. Now, there's three main things that you should know about us. Number one, we're 100% pro-Trump campaign. I've been a supporter of Trump from the very beginning of his presidential campaign. We're with Trump. We want to go to Washington and implement the Make America Great Again agenda. We believe in it, and we want to be President Trump's best friend in Congress. Number two, we're the most conservative candidate in this race by a wide margin. Even the Coeur d'Alene Press says that. They've said it repeatedly, actually, and they don't actually believe that's a good thing, if you want to know the truth. But we're the most conservative. If you doubt this, pick up one of our brochures or go to michaelsnyderforcongress.com. Compare what we believe to what the other guys believe on issue after issue, and you'll see on issue after issue, we're more conservative. Number three, like I said before, I'm a Bible-believing Christian. We don't just need to turn our nation back to the Republican Party. We need to turn our nation back to God. And that's the message I want to take to Washington. Well, I'm not going there to be part of the club or to be part of the swamp. We need to drain the swamp. I'm going to be a wrecking ball to the spirit of political correctness. I'm going there to turn over the tables and restore our constitutional republic.
Nice. Thank you so much, Michael. Rocky.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. I really enjoyed having you host this, and thanks, Christian, for all your technical support. I was happy to be able to cut through this and get in here. So,
sure thing.
I'm running against my opponent because they voted for bills such as increasing government control, increasing benefits for government employees, while restricting the ways that the products in which businesses can sell. They've favored special interest groups, voted to lower government transparency, gave into federal bullying, increased licensures, et cetera, et cetera. You know, I'm a principled individual. I stand on principles. It's the forefront. It's the forefront. Principles and liberty. That's where I'm at. I'm a completely transparent candidate. I don't have a voting record, but if you go to my website, rockyferrenberg.com, under the news section, you can actually see where I began to discuss and talk about my stances on all these bills. So you know exactly what you're getting. There's no sugarcoating, no saying one thing to another person. It's all right there, exactly who I am. What you see is what you get on there. So that way you know what you're voting for. I also make myself available to everybody, whether you're in my district or whether you're outside of my district. I will talk with you. I will have a conversation with you. I do not have any problems with talking to anybody. So I plan on bringing the change from the anti-conservative big government garbage that's been plaguing our country and our state. So once again, I've been Rocky Ferrenberg.
Awesome, Rocky. Thank you so much. Josh?
Yeah, so with me, if you elect me, the thing is I'm going to take you to Boise with me, whether we be in a committee room or if we be on the floor. With that, we're going to have it to where your voice is carried to Boise, as far too often it is not. When I'm back in town, when we're in session or out of session, I'm going to host town halls where I can hear what you want to see and what you believe is going to help us move to a more conservative Idaho and going to help with the economy and reducing those regulations and truly allowing the free market to work.
Awesome. Thank you, Josh. And Lyle, bringing it home.
Well, I've got about 6 decades invested in this district area 25 and the state of Idaho, and I would like to see the government turned around some. I appreciate the Idaho Town Hall group, Christian and Tom, for hosting this and putting it on, getting it out before the people, all the attendees that have come to watch. I just think we've got to turn our faith back to God, and we need to vote and represent the people in liberty and taxes, and to make a level playing field for all businesses as far as tax breaks and incentives to be able to be in business, to be out there in the marketplace. So we need your support. I need your support. And I've watched the voting record of our District 25 and some of the surrounding districts, and I find the voting record from the Idaho Freedom Foundation pretty disturbing to me.
Awesome.
I would really appreciate your vote on May 15th.
Well, I got to tell you, I think this concludes the forum, I believe. I did want to leave one thing with you all. I've had a chance to know many of you for many years, and I can't tell you how excited I am to be able to see you guys running, and it's been an honor to be able to be chosen to be able to host this thing with you guys tonight. I hope I didn't let you down, and And good luck to all of you guys. You guys mean the world to me, and I hope you know that. And so I just want to leave that with you. Christian?
That's all I got. Tom, you were awesome. And thank you so much to all the candidates. You all making a very serious sacrifice here. I know it, and I've been through it, and I appreciate it. So God bless you all.
Thank
Amen.
you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Tom.
Bye.
Thanks, Tom.